Fella here on the left is President Warren G. Harding and his Vice President Calvin Coolidge. President Harding, one of the mediocrest, least impressive presidents of the United States. Wasn't a bad dude, but he was a guy that didn't really stand for much of anything. And yet he won with the greatest majority in the history of two-party politics, 61% of the vote. His Williams Gibbs McAdoo, that's a fun name. Why isn't my name McAdoo? William Gibbs McAdoo described President Harding's speeches as an army of pompous phrases moving across the landscape in search of an idea. H.L. Mencken, you've heard of him earlier during the if you read about the Scopes Monkey trial or watched those videos. He said of Harding's public speaking, it drags itself out of the dark abysm of pish. And Abysm of Pish. That would be a great rock band. Or, why isn't my name Abysm of Pish? It drags itself out of the dark abysm of pish and crawls insanely up to the topmost pinnacle of posh. It is rumble and brumble. It is flap and doodle. It is balder and dash. Harding, not a bad guy, but nothing special about him. Although, you will get to hear him speak out condemning lynching, so he wasn't without a conscience. He wasn't particularly dishonest or corrupt. Okay, this is Al Capone, who was dishonest and corrupt. Warren G. Harding wasn't particularly dishonest or corrupt, but he surrounded himself with people who are. And that got him into big trouble. He said of his... I want to find this quote because that gives me an excuse to cuss on film. Here's what he said about his they called him the Ohio gang, drinking and poker buddies. His drinking buddies and his poker buddies were his key advisors, and he said, "I have no trouble with my enemies. I can take care of my enemies in a fight. But my friends, my goddamn friends, they're the ones who keep me walking the floor at nights." And one of those GD friends, Secretary of the Interior Albert B. Fall, did keep Mr. Harding up walking real late at night, got him involved in a major scandal, the Teapot Dome scandal. So you'll read about that in the Open Sacks text, and there'll be a video feature on that. President Harding, that is not President Harding, that is Al Capone, who was, let me check, hang on, I'm checking. Al Capone was never President of the United States. Warren G. Harding was, but died. And Vice President Calvin Coolidge, known for his very quiet demeanor. He was a man of very few words. Calvin Coolidge becomes president. It's said that Calvin Coolidge was confronted at a party by a woman who said, "I bet you $10 I can make you say more than 2 words." And the president said, "You lose." Calvin Coolidge becomes president after Harding's death and then runs for re-election. His opponent is Al Smith, and Al Smith loses. Why does Al Smith lose? Al Smith loses in large part because he is a Catholic. And though the Catholic population of the United States has grown and grown and grown over the decades, as of the 1920s, there were still many, many voices in America, including the Ku Klux Klan, who were very anti-Catholic, did not think that a Catholic could serve as president because his allegiance to the Pope in Rome, who is, aside from being the leader of the church, is also the monarch of a small territory, his allegiance would be split. So we'll have 2 videos looking at the 1928 presidential election and the forces in society that were still still committed to homogeneity, the anti-diversity forces that thought a Catholic had no place in the White House. So, to Mr. Smith, I quote, look, I'm just coming up with this right now. Can you believe how awesome I am? To Mr. Smith, I quote Calvin Coolidge, you lose. We'll wrap up this lesson with a captivating history video summarizing everything we have talked about. And remember, the economy has expanded like a bubble. And if we know anything about bubbles, they last forever. There will be no end to the economic growth. Or will there?